not only a constant standard of living, but there's the cost of maintaining a constant standard of living, but there's another element to the changes made here, which they call hedonic adjustments, where they have mathematical models that reduce the rate of inflation generally for quality improvements that the average person has no idea that he's enjoying. Quality changes are necessary adjustments to a number of prices. For example, let's say you have an 8-ounce candy bar, and in 1 month, and then the next month it's a 6-ounce candy bar, but it's still in the same size package as the 8-ounce candy bar. In theory, the people who do all the surveying for the Bureau of Labor Statistics will pick up that difference and they'll adjust the pricing accordingly. On the other hand, if the government, and this happened some time back, and it was so egregious they actually stopped doing this particular thing, but in principle it's the same thing that it goes on, and it's a simple example, so I'm going to use it. The government mandates a formula change to gasoline to improve air quality. One instance, it added suddenly 10 cents per gallon to the cost of gasoline. The Bureau of Labor Statistics did not include that in the inflation rate because it was deemed a quality improvement. Well, again, this is where academia perhaps diverges from a common experience, and I love the people in academia, but you have to take a lot of what's put out there as nice theoretical discussion as opposed to a measurement of the real world as most people look at it. The guy is filling his tank of gas, isn't thinking, oh boy, I'm paying 10 cents a gallon here for better air, which actually was not the case in terms of what happened with that particular additive. He's thinking, well, I'm paying 10 cents more per gallon to fill my tank of gas. Got to get to work. It's what he's looking at out of pocket. You have another example is in the area of school textbooks. They have a way of the extremely complicated model of estimating quality changes in school textbooks, including whether or not the textbook has a color picture in it or black and white. The average student doesn't care. I mean, unless he's an art student or something, but the average student doesn't care whether he's got a color picture in his textbook. His concern is, how much am I going to be out of pocket to buy my textbooks for the semester? It's what people are out of pocket. And then they do this in a number of areas, mostly where they have the ability to reduce the reported rate of inflation. You look at airline travel. Now if you're going to do this consistently, I would think there might be an adjustment there for now all the hassle that people have to go through in terms of security at airports. And
how about having to pay extra to put their bags on the plane?
Yeah. Well, some of that they measure, but the stuff that you can't put a direct measure on, they have models for, and they model the good things, which will reduce the reported rate of inflation. The bad things generally are not modeled, which would increase the rate of inflation as they report it. So when I'm talking a difference of 7 percentage points based on what happened in 1980, I mean the way they reported things in 1980, about half of the difference there is tied to their trying to move the CPI to a substitution-based measure, and they did not do that fully. They've tried to mimic a substitution base there. The other half is largely tied to hedonic adjustments that the average person doesn't consider when he's looking at what he's out of pocket. And again, what do I need to spend to maintain my standard of living? The average guy, again, is not looking at the nebulous quality improvements that some of the academics are looking at.
You are addressing systemic collapse. You are giving time frames for this, that you're seeing windows of time in which we're in a state of moving into a collapse. You were interviewed on a show and you talked about the fact that you can't raise enough taxes and you can't cut enough government spending to take care of our deficits.
Yep.
That was very scary to me because it brought home that 99% of us are probably thinking that we're going to be able to get out of this, but not being able to embrace those two elements. After listening to you, those two elements tell me that we are in a collapse now, possibly, or we don't know we're headed for a collapse. But what really bothered me, as you said, I'm paraphrasing here, of course, we could have changed our future some years ago, but we didn't. And now we can't change it. Talk about that, explain it and distill it to the audience. I know that many people would say, oh, that's gloom and doom and everything, but there comes a point where you have to face a systemic condition that's going on that's not being embraced. I think we're all better off facing what we have to face, knowing what we need to know, and then moving in our decision quotient from there. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm an optimist at heart. I try to give the story as straight as I can, and unfortunately, things are not only not bright here, but as you indicated, in many ways, to a certain extent, hopeless. We have a very bad time ahead of us. On the other hand, there is good news in all that, and it's really bad news that they're not able to fix the system. The good news is that if the individual knows what's going to happen, he or she can prepare himself and get through it okay.
Before you start talking about that, can you explain why you have said that we can't raise our taxes enough or cut our spending enough to balance anything? Explain that.
I'm going to do that. I just wanted to give a little positive
sure.
up front before getting into it. What happened, again, with Franklin Roosevelt, he puts us on the debt standard. And it keeps expanding, and you get into the post-1987 crash period with Federal Reserve Chairman Greenspan, and he recognized that we had a very major structural problem that he didn't have a way of addressing, at least not in a healthy manner. The structural problem was that the average household could not stay ahead of inflation with income. And this wasn't due to the misreporting of the inflation so much as it was to a terribly explosive trade deficit and a lot of higher-paying jobs disappearing offshore. If you look at income, average weekly earnings, they're lower today than they were in 1973, adjusted for inflation. That's as reported by the government. If you look at average household income or median household income, adjusted for inflation, the most recent reporting of 2009, and it hasn't gotten better, is below where it was before the 2001 recession. And if you use the CPI for reporting, which is the way most people look at that, it actually, the average household income, median household income, the middle level of income, adjusted for inflation, is below where it was in 1973. The average guy cannot stay ahead of inflation. Now, there's a problem there if you're looking to have sustained economic growth, because income generally drives economic growth. And where the consumer accounts for over 70% of the GDP, if consumer income isn't growing faster than inflation, a good forecast is that the economy is not going to be growing faster than inflation. That's fundamental. The only way that you can get faster growth is theoretically short-term, either through debt expansion or savings liquidation. And we've had both, but what Greenspan did was he encouraged the debt expansion, and where we've been living on the debt standard, the whole debt picture, both the consumer level, the corporate level, and certainly at the federal level, just exploded beyond control. In 2007, that came to a head. We entered a systemic solvency crisis. We had a collapse of the many elements of the debt structure in 2008, and yet the consumer's income circumstances not improved. And So the consumer's restricted in terms of income growth. You can't. It's not growing faster than inflation. On